Well, time to round up some of the top stories of the week now. First, the family of a fallen Wharton firefighter plans to appeal a court ruling that says the marriage to his transgender widow was in fact legal. This week, a state appeals court upheld the union between Nikki and Thomas Araguz. The fight over the death benefits of Thomas Araguz dates back to 2010 when he died battling a fire. His family claims the marriage was not valid since Nikki was born male and Texas does not recognize same-sex marriages. The Araguz's attorney says he believes the case could go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So could the Araguz case have an impact on the same-sex marriage debate? Joining us live in the newsroom is our legal analyst, Chris Tritico, news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. Remember, you can also weigh in on our discussion on our Fox 26 Facebook page, or you can send me a tweet at Sally Mack. Fox 26 will be checking social media throughout the show. So, Chris, first of all, from the legal aspect, how did the court come up with the decision that this marriage was in fact legal?
Well, you know, Sally, this case could go both ways. Now, this is the issue here. This was a summary judgment case. The summary judgment says you file a motion telling the judge that there are no fact issues in question, and on the law, we win. The defendant filed that case in the main case, filed a summary judgment in the main case. The court agreed with that, granted summary judgment in favor of the defendant. That's what the Court of Appeals overturned. And what the Court of Appeals said was there is a fact issue in this case, and so they reversed the case, sent it back to the trial court to determine the fact issues. In other words, they get a jury trial on this. The case isn't over. Now, based on the ruling, though, of the Court of Appeals, that there is a statute in Texas recognizing that if you've had a sex change, you can get married in Texas, then I think that she wins the trial now, and then it moves into the appellate court. Does it go to the U.S. Supreme Court? That's another question as to whether or not by the time this case is ready to go to the Supreme Court, these issues are already settled. And is this Texas law one that the U.S. Supreme Court would actually look at? Because what we would be asking the Supreme Court to look at is, does this Texas law violate some constitutional provision or some other federal provision that the U.S. Supreme Court needs to look at? That's a big question. Not sure yet, Jackie Bally, where this case is going to go. And I guess the issue being the court reversed this case, sent it back down, and said Texas law recognizes that a transgender person can get married in Texas. That's entirely opposite of what all of our leaders have been talking about.
Right, entirely opposite than what we've seen in our state before. And usually these matters are resolved at the state level. I do think it will go to the Supreme Court because the ones who are having problems with this is the deceased mother and I believe another relative. And they're saying because of she's a transgender, her real identity does not fall within the constitutional definition of what a marriage should be. In Texas, as we know, that's between a man and a woman. And so that's the basis for why they're suing and going on with these legal proceedings. And I do think you will see it go all the way up to the Supreme Court because it's not clear and it does go against what our leaders and what we've been ruling so far.
Interesting issue in this case, Mustafa Tamiz. The Texas Supreme Court had ruled quite some time ago that if you were born a man, you're always a man, regardless of whether or not you've had a sex change. The Texas legislature came back and changed the law and said if you have a sex change, you can get a marriage license and get married in Texas. I don't know what the U.S. Supreme Court has to look at on that.
Well, one question is, does this get to the Supreme Court? Because there's a number of cases around the country. The Virginia case that recently came out that potentially may go to the Supreme Court. So some of the specifics of this case might be decided prior to it getting to Supreme Court. But the larger issue is, look, on the one hand, we want state rights and we want to respect what the states have done. And sometimes there are a number of people in our state that believe that Texas should secede and Texas should come first, and this was something that was passed through the legislature. On the other hand, we want to run to the Supreme Court. Yeah. On the other hand, we want to run to the Supreme Court and go every time we disagree with something because we want to not talk about state rights. We want to talk about, you know, what we think the law is based on the interpretation that we want to make.
You know, the Supreme Court made two landmark decisions last year on gay rights issues and pretty much said that the states get to say what they want about gay rights. Now we're going to see what's going to happen with the Supreme Court. But given those two decisions, the California case and the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, do you really see the Supreme Court overturning a Texas law?
I do think it's going to be based on, I do think the Supreme Court is going to say we're going to let the state handle, each state handle how they're going to deal with this situation. We only have 13 states that actually allow same-sex marriages. So I do not see the United States Supreme Court overturning anything that any state has made or any decision they've made in this area. I don't think that'll happen.
The trend across the country, really, I mean, there's states like Texas who are holding out on these issues, but the trend across the country has been we're going to start recognizing these rights.
Because it becomes very difficult that when you start to doing on equity, when you start making decisions on fairness and the Constitution, then that fairness, equity is passed through everybody regardless of race, gender, or creed. So in essence, on principle, this makes a lot of sense, but it's an emotional issue, and the right has a lot of trouble with getting out of people's bedrooms, and so this is going to continue to be a fight.
All right, and we're going to leave. Jackie was chomping at the bit, but we got to stop. Sorry, you're out.
All right, we'll still
right
have a chance to weigh in next half hour because we're going to talk about the race for governor and the political attacks between Wendy Davis and Greg Abbott. So stay tuned for that.